Our next guest is Talk TV Royal Editor Sarah Hewson. Sarah, thank you so much for coming back on the Royal Report. So look, big news this week. We've seen an update to the Royal website, including some rejigging of titles.
Yes, we have indeed, Caroline. And the timing of this was really interesting because all references, lingering references to Prince Harry and Meghan as HRH have been wiped from the royal family's website. It comes 3 years after they stepped down as working royals, and under the terms of that agreement following that infamous Sandringham summit, they were no longer able to publicly use their HRH titles. But they had remained in some references on the royal website. There's been a major clean-up operation, and now there is no reference to them at all. Harry referred to as Prince Harry or the Duke or he, no HRH. But I think in an even more brutal reflection of their now diminished status within the royal family, when you look at the profile page to try and find the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, you've got to keep on scrolling right down to the bottom of the page, right beyond the more minor royals like the Duke and Duchess of Gloucester, the Duke of Kent, Princess Alexandra, for example, until you can find Harry and Meghan. The only person beneath them on the pecking order is the disgraced Prince Andrew. And this came as Harry went off on a mini tour, Caroline, to Asia, to Tokyo and Singapore, taking part in a charity summit and a polo match. He told audiences there that his life now was charity. And let's hope so. If we can get the focus back, and if he can put the focus back on the work that he does for Centobale and Invictus, for example, rather than the family gripes, I think everyone would be very pleased to see that, although some commentators have described this visit as more like a lad's holiday than a royal tour by Prince Harry. So it hasn't been without its controversies, particularly for a committed environmentalist having travelled so far for a polo match and a summit.
Well, Harry is rarely without controversy, but the changes to the website have been described as a brutal reality check. Do we know if there's been any reaction or any response?
No direct comments, Caroline, and I think that we've seen Harry putting on a brave face on it. Look, this happened 3 years ago, but it does just give us, as I was saying, this very visual representation of just how much their status has changed and how they really are no longer, although the Queen and the late Queen and the King always insist they're very much loved members of the family, they're not working royals, and they're not considered to be as important in the pecking order as those more minor royals, because they're not working for the royal family now. And obviously there is a lot of disquiet and a lot of tension around the attacks that have been coming from across the pond. And I think, although Buckingham Palace would say that this was just part of the editing process and updating following the death of the late Queen, obviously, to see any reference to Harry as His Royal Highness stripped does say a lot about where he stands now.
Now, we've seen some pretty interesting polling this week about the popularity of Charles and William in the US. Can you give us a run-through of the notable results?
Yeah, and I think this polling might have made interesting reading for Prince Harry as well, mightn't it? Because this was a poll of just over 1,000 Americans conducted by Gallup, and they were asked for their views on 15 notable individuals who feature in the news. Top of that list, Prince William, with a favourability rating of 59%, beating the Ukrainian President, Volodymyr Zelensky, Chief Justice Roberts, for example, Jill Biden, the First Lady, and in fourth place, King Charles, and both of them coming ahead of President Biden and the former President Donald Trump. Really, really interesting this, because there was a lot of concern that after the remarks made by Harry and Meghan in their Oprah Winfrey interview, after Spare, after Netflix, that actually the royal family's popularity had plummeted in the United States and had taken a big hit. When Prince William visited Boston at the end of last year, there was some anxiety about how he and the Princess of Wales would be received. And indeed, the first day of their visit coincided with a royal race row at Buckingham Palace, which was far from ideal when he wanted to be putting the focus on his Earthshot prize. But I think this will give them a real boost to see how they are viewed in the United States. And the timing of this also very good for them, because Prince William due to be in New York in September. So he will go knowing that he does have the backing of the American people.
And do you think that this sort of poll, do you think it's a reflection of the standing or the changing cultural perception of the royal family since the passing of the Queen?
But I think the Prince and Princess of Wales often top the popularity polls. And I think what you're looking at here is this is more about personality and persona rather than position, that you see the Prince of Wales ahead of his father, the King. You see him way ahead, of course, of the president. So this is taking it away from politics. They have nothing to do with the Democrats or the Republicans. And so you see both of these featuring very highly in those polls. And as I said, I think it will be very interesting for the Sussexes, who've seen their own favourability ratings in the United States really suffering since those repeated attacks on the royal family.
Now, we're coming up to the anniversary of the Queen's passing, and we understand that Charles won't publicly mark the occasion. Is that correct?
Yes, it is, Caroline. And I mean, it's hard to believe, isn't it, that it is almost a year now since the death of Queen Elizabeth II. And King Charles is going to be spending the day, we understand, quietly and privately at the Balmoral estate in Scotland, the place where his mother died. He, of course, was with her on that day. And in doing so, he's following on from a tradition set by his late mother, who always marked her accession day, February the 6th, the date of the death of her father, privately on the Sandringham estate. And every time I would call up Buckingham Palace and say, well, how will this anniversary be marked? We were told in no uncertain terms, this is not a celebration. This is a day when the monarch reflects on the loss of their parent. And that will certainly be the case for the King. I think it will be very poignant for him to be spending it at Balmoral and reflecting on just how much has changed for him in the course of the last year. We are expecting, though, to see some kind of public acknowledgement of the anniversary from the Prince and Princess of Wales with a statement or a recorded message. It's not entirely clear yet, reflecting on the legacy of the late Queen, but also looking ahead to the future of the royal family.
Now, we read in the news this week that Kate has been patron of Place to Be for 10 years. Can you tell us what this organisation does and how it fits in with Kate's theme of patronages?
Yes, Place to Be is a charity providing mental health support for children and young people through programmes that are rolled out into schools. And Kate became a patron in 2013, the year that she became a mother to Prince George. It was one of her earlier patronages, and it has had a huge influence on shaping the work that she has gone on to do as the Duchess of Cambridge and now the Princess of Wales, because it was 3 years after she joined Place to Be that she, William and Harry founded Heads Together, the mental health campaign designed to tackle the stigma around talking about mental health challenges. And all of the work that Kate has gone on to do subsequently has been around those areas: mental health support, the early years, trying to give children and young people the best possible start in life. And what she has learned through her work in Place to Be has certainly been very much fundamental to all of that.
Now, we know the royals are currently at Balmoral, but they'll be back on full duties before we know it. The King hasn't been overseas much since taking over as regent, but we understand he has a trip planned to Kenya.
Yeah, it's been really quiet on the royal tour front for some time now, Caroline, partly because of COVID, then the death of the Queen. Part of the King's visit to Europe was cancelled because of rioting in France, you might remember. So there's been a lot of questions around where he might go and which Commonwealth nation would be the first to receive a royal visit. And it is going to be Kenya in the autumn of this year. Kenya, a republic, but considered to be a very important Commonwealth nation. And it is also in Kenya where Queen Elizabeth became queen when she discovered the news of her father's death. So it plays a very important role in royal family history as well, and that has been selected for the King's first visit. As for Australia, that is penciled for 2024, due to coincide with the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting in Samoa, which the King is going to be attending, and to coincide with the bicentenary of the New South Wales Legislative Council. So I think we can safely say that's a likely date to be in the King's diary.
Well, we hope so. Now, I'm an unashamed fan of the Princess Royal. I think the royal family could do with half a dozen of her, frankly. She's due to celebrate her 73rd birthday, and she's had a little bit to say.
You and me both, Caroline. I think the Princess Royal, Princess Anne, is so refreshing. She is straight talking. She is no nonsense, no fuss. She gets on with it. She is the hardest working royal last year and for many, many years indeed. You might remember last year her visit to Australia. She travelled 25,000 miles, carried out 20 engagements in 4 days with just one member of staff with her. Rather a smaller entourage than we often see for these royal visits. But yes, she gave an interview to mark her 73rd birthday. And she was asked in that about the prospect of a slimmed down monarchy, something we've talked about a lot, something that was thought to be part of King Charles's plan. And she said that she didn't think it was a good idea because it might have seemed like a good idea in the past, but there were rather few of us now, she said, doing the job. I think they're thinking to herself, I can't possibly take on any more, and reflecting on the fact that the royal family has naturally slimmed down with the departures of Harry and Meghan, Prince Andrew having been kicked out of official duties in the royal family, and of course the death of the Queen and Prince Philip. So Princess Anne, in her customary no-nonsense style, I think, saying it how it is.
Sarah Hewson, as always, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Caroline.